Did you know a staggering 69% of Australians feel stressed about money on a weekly basis, but only a third of households actually have a budget? That's like being stuck in a rip and refusing to grab a life buoy. Welcome to Dollars and Dreams, the podcast designed to empower you to take control of your personal and business finance. You know, the very thought of money and finance can often send chills down your spine and stir up fear of the unknown. But let's change that narrative together. Through this podcast, my goal is to not only to provide you with useful information, but also to inspire and motivate you to take action towards your own financial goals. Let's rewrite your money story together. Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of Dollars and Dreams. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something that's really important to me and something that is close to my heart. It's budgeting. And I hear people all the time that will say to me, Jen, I can't budget because I don't have enough money. When I've got some money and I've paid off these bills and things, I'll do a budget. A budget is even more crucial when money is tight. Listen to that myth busting again. A budget is even more crucial when money is tight because a budget gives your money direction, it gives you control over your money, and it allows you to make really informed decisions. I've done budgeting with so many people over the years, and it never surprises me that they're surprised where they're spending their money. Most people make the assumption that it's going to be things like the coffees and the subscriptions because that's what we're always told. But of course, that's not always the case, and rarely are people completely knowing where they're spending their money. And so that's what a budget does. So let me bust some of the myths for you and face some of the facts that happen. Did you know that 4 out of every 10 Australians are living paycheck to paycheck and they're barely scraping by until the next payday? Are you one of those people? Are you one of those people that have a budget in place? Almost half of us would be unable to handle an unexpected expense of just $1,000. So if the car breaks down and you need to fix the engine on the car, these people are not going to have the money set aside. And one of the things that we always work with when we're doing budgeting with our clients is creating what we call an OMG account, or others call it an emergency fund. I call it an OMG account because that is the words that people yell when they get that bill is, oh my God, how am I going to pay for that? 1 out of every 2 people in Australia could not pay a bill of less than $1,000 if it came. A staggering 1 out of every 5 Australians are relying on what we call buy now, pay later schemes. And they're often digging themselves into a deeper hole because they see that small payment and they go, I'll get that on buy now, pay later while I pay off these other debts. Unfortunately, people now have so many buy now, pay later schemes that they're actually drowning in that debt. And for some people, that buy now, pay later debt is the equivalent of other people's grocery bills for the week. So be very careful and don't fool yourself that if I can get rid of these, I'll defer that and I'll save for that and get rid of a debt. You need to draw a line in the sand if you are one of those people that it has relied on buy now, pay later to survive. You need to draw a line in the sand today that is not going to be you. And I was talking to a client of mine the other day, it's a business client. Now, his runs a butchery shop. And I said to him at the time, we were looking at how to make his business run better. And I actually said to him, get rid of the buy now, pay later, because for the business that has their products sold through buy now, pay later, it's a significant cut that those schemes take from that business house. And I said to him, surely people aren't using buy now, pay later schemes to buy their meat and things at a butcher. And it was a staggering percentage that he told me that do that. My first thoughts were, after I got over that my client is supporting the needs of his customers, was why do people need to buy something that is consumed immediately on a buy now, pay later scheme? So they're buying their meat this week. They're not paying for it for another 4 weeks on the buy now, pay later. It's a false economy to think that you are spreading your cost out over 4 weeks and you're better off. You're not. You're better off to have a banking structure. And if you haven't listened to my podcast on the 6 bank account systems, go back and look at that. And that's where we allocate money to all the different bank accounts that serve a need. So rather than buying meat on buy now, pay later, you should have put money into your everyday spending account to cover the cost of that, because it's groceries. And you can't be paying for something 4 weeks later that you've already consumed. I mean, that's just madness. So that leads me to the next point that we hear all the time, is that money stress is the leading cause of relationship breakdowns in Australia, and it's now even more than infidelity. So when I first started my digital platform, jenrichardson.co, infidelity was the highest rate of relationship breakdowns. That has now been overtaken by money stress. The reason that has probably happened is cost of living has gone up, our mortgage or rents have gone up significantly, and so we're under greater pressure to make our wages last longer. And if you can put a budget in place, it can relieve that stress, because you have an understanding of where you can make changes. You have an understanding of where your money is going to go. So I just go back through those statistics I said, because I think they're really important that we understand what they are. 4 out of every 10 Australians are living paycheck to paycheck. Half of us could not pay an unexpected bill that came of less than $1,000. And then a staggering 1 out of 5 Australians are using buy now, pay later schemes to survive on a week-to-week basis. And money stress has now become the leading cause of relationship breakdowns. So those statistics paint a pretty bleak picture, don't you think? But there is good news. And of course, a simple budget can relieve every single one of those statistics. So a budget can put money aside so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck. It will relieve the money stress that is causing relationship breakdowns. It will stop people relying on buy now, pay later schemes to support their own family budget. And of course, it sets aside money for emergencies so that you can pay that unexpected bill when it arrives. Because let me assure you, there is the one guarantee in life that you will get an unexpected bill. They happen. Fridges break down, cars break down, the kids get sick and need hospital treatment. So if you're ready to ditch the debt, mend your money situation and build a healthier relationship with your finances, then you need to stick around and listen to this podcast, because I'm about to prove budgeting isn't for the wealthy. And it is one of the things that we hear all the time, like, I'll just get through these bills that I've got and then I'll do a budget, or I don't have enough money to budget, or even I don't want to go without things so I can't do a budget. And they're all myths. And the myth that we hear mostly is around budgets are for people who've got money. Let's bust that myth here now, and I never want to hear it again. A budget is more important for people with little money, because that's where the money stress comes in. That's where we don't have money set aside in our emergency fund to pay that bill when it arrives. And it is where we are turning to for the buy now, pay later schemes. So cost of living, as we all know, has gone up significantly in the last 2 years. It's not going to change anytime soon. Inflation rate last month, it rose, so it was higher than the month before. Inflation rate has not come down entirely to where it should be. So the government's always aimed for the inflation rate to be somewhere between 2 and 3%. At the moment, we're running at about 5 or 6%. So inflation has to come down. Of course, inflation is the increase of all the goods and services that we have in the country. So some of it isn't things that you may be buying. It might be things that a business is buying, but it is something that impacts everything that we spend. So when the cost of living goes up, our debt cycle also goes up. So a debt cycle is where we're not paying off our debts as quickly as we should, where we're borrowing money to survive, and where we are using debt to live on a day-to-day basis. And of course, when we are living in a debt cycle, when we're paying off one debt and creating another one at the same time, that creates a lot of stress. And don't ever underestimate the stress that debt can have in your life. I'm not saying that you need to get rid of debt straight away, because sometimes people go, I can't get rid of it, there's no spare cash. There is always small little steps that you can take, but doing a budget is the first of those, so that you can look at where you're spending money so that you can make changes. And a budget is like your Google Maps. It works out where you need to be so that you know what steps you've got to take. And, inside my course, My Money Makeover, which is one of my courses I have on my jenrichardson.co website, we do a challenge that you have to find $833 a month for 12 months. Now, that means that you will find $10,000. Everyone that I work with tells me that can't be done. I can assure you it can be done. It's a matter of putting a budget in place, trying to find ways to increase your income without, having to work a second job. There's lots of ways, but also looking for small savings. And in the course, I go through lots of strategies in how to decrease your shopping bills. And when you've got a target in mind and a plan to get there, it does become an achievable task. So I had somebody last week that actually said to me, but I didn't get my 833, Jen. I failed at it. I might as well, what's the point? When I had a chat to them, I said, okay, you might not have got the 833, but how much did you actually find? And it was something that was like $520. And so they looked at not getting to the $833 as a failure. But as I said to them, that $520 that you found, you didn't have the week before. And if I could put your pay up $6,000 a year, which is what $500 a month was, would you not be happy with that? And of course they said, well, yeah, if my employer told me that my wage was going to go up $6,000, I'd be stoked. So, okay, well, you've just given your family $6,000 increase in your income because you found $520 this month. Don't look at that as a failure because you didn't make the 833. Look at it that you've just found $520 that you didn't have the month before. That then allowed them to pay down some debt. They started to build an emergency fund, and they started to have a very different outlook on how they spent their money. And of course, the roadmap, which is your budget, shows you where the money comes from and where it goes. So it lets you make informed decisions on how you can decrease your spending. We always look at our spending that we have to spend first. So things like your mortgage or your rent, your groceries and everything. But just because it's groceries doesn't mean that you can't find a way to cut your spending. Inside My Money Makeover, I give you lots of ideas on how to decrease your spending on your groceries, how to look at ways to save on your online shopping and things like that. So if you're interested in putting a budget in place, why not come and join me over in My Money Makeover? So looking at your spending patterns is a really important thing because spending patterns is what can create an area where we overspend. If you meet girlfriends for coffee and lunch and you meet them in a shopping centre, and of course as you're walking back to your car you see a beautiful pair of shoes that you love, and you buy them because you've just had a great time, and we're already in a nice euphoric state. And that's the mental side that you need to get control of with your spending. But seeing those spending patterns that every Saturday or every second Saturday you spend a lot of money, look at what created you spending that money, and your budget will tell you that. Because when you go and look at your spending, so when we create a spending, we don't pluck figures out of the air. We go back and look at the last 3 months of your spending to see where you spend firstly, to work out what you need to spend and what you can cut back. And so if you see in your spending patterns that every second Saturday you're spending a lot of money at clothes, shoes, makeup, wherever you spend, look at why that happened. And if that's because you met girlfriends for brunch and it happened to be near a shopping centre, so you took yourself shopping because you were nicely dressed up, had hair and makeup done, then you need to circumvent that by putting something in place. That doesn't mean you don't go and meet girlfriends, because we have to live and we still have to do things that give us joy and excitement in our life. But after that brunch or lunch or whatever it is that you meet people, instead of going shopping, find something else to do. Go do something, go to a beach or go to an art gallery, or do something that still brings you joy but doesn't cost you money. And the other thing that we hear as a myth is that a budget stops you doing what you want to do. Most people think that a budget is like a low-calorie diet. You don't get to eat anything. You get to eat lettuce, carrots, water, and the occasional rice. It's not like that. A budget is working out what's important to you and allowing you to get those things, but by putting savings in place with things that are less important to you. So when you do a budget, you look at what income you have coming in, the things that you need to pay, the things that you want to pay for, and then the other things. And it's those other things that we cut back because they're not important in your life. They don't bring that real joy to you, and they don't add value to your life. We also look at the things that you have joy and value from, and things that you need to spend to find savings there. So remember, a budget is not about denying the things that you enjoy. Instead, it's about making conscious decisions with your choices and prioritizing what matters most to you. So a budget is about living within your means, and it will help you avoid the stress and anxiety that comes when you have a financial uncertainty. So if you're sitting there thinking, I really don't know how I'm going to pay that bill when it comes next week, or council rates are coming, or water bills coming, how the hell am I going to pay for that? That's the stress and anxiety from the unknown. A budget creates the known and then puts something in place to ensure that it is worked towards. So when money is tight, a budget is even more crucial because it acts like a financial magnifying glass, or you're shining a torch on something that you couldn't see clearly, and it will reveal the hidden leaks, the things that you don't know you're spending money, or the things that you don't understand how much you're spending. Nobody's saying you can't spend on things, but maybe you don't need to spend as much. And we did a client the other day through our financial planning advice practice here at 123 Financial Group. And when we got this couple to do a budget because they were about to retire, and of course when you retire, you need to be careful on where you're spending your money. So we got them to do a budget. Now, the lady of this couple was really surprised that she was actually spending $3,600 a year on magazines. Now, that's a lot of money. And even she was surprised. She said, I know I bought a lot of magazines. So she buys them for the quizzes and all the games in it. And so she was buying some books that are just books of, Sudoku and all of those sorts of things, because that was something that was important to her. But she was still surprised that it cost them as a family $3,600. And so what we suggested was not saying not do them, but there's so many free apps that you can get on your iPad or your phone where you can do the quizzes or you can do the crosswords. Do some of them and maybe just buy one magazine a week instead of the 5 or 6 that she was buying. So that was a real shock to her. And if she hadn't done that budget, she wouldn't even have known that she was spending $3,600 on quizzes. So it does shine a magnifying glass on your expenses, or a torch on your expenses, to work out where it is. And it empowers you to cut back in areas that aren't essential and redirect those funds towards, the necessities of life, getting an emergency fund in place, or building for your savings or long-term goals. And for some people, that can be into your superannuation to get you to retirement earlier than what you would have. So a budget allows you to stretch your dollars further and make the most of every single cent that you earn. It is important to remember, though, that a budget is realistic and flexible, because things change, circumstances are not always the same. But what I want you to do is, if you need flexibility, is to just quickly tweak your budget. Don't throw your budget out and go, this doesn't work. It's important to tweak your budget to reassess your situation. So, for example, in the last couple of years, with interest rates going up on mortgages, everybody should have tweaked their budget to account for the additional payment that they needed to make. If you were ahead on your mortgage, you could maybe use your redraw to keep covering that additional cost, but you don't want to go backwards. So the flexibility of a budget there is to find other savings or tweak it. And of course, go back to the diet again, where, I said that a budget isn't like a crash diet where you're eating lettuce, carrot, and boiled rice. If you have a budget like that, you will very quickly give up on the budget, because you won't be able to do things in your life that you want to be able to do. And it'll be like a crash diet. You throw it out before you've even actually achieved anything. So your budget should take into account your unique personal circumstances and the things that you want to do with your money, because don't listen to your friend, your family, your neighbour, your colleague at work. What they want to do with their money will be very different to what's important with you. And unless your budget is set up to suit your needs, then you will quickly give up on it, because we hear it all the time, don't we? The first thing you should do is get rid of all your subscriptions and have one. But I said to a client the other day that doesn't suit everybody, because if you're a person that is housebound, because you might have a carer, you might be stuck at home with difficulties with leaving, because there might be some circumstances that you don't want to leave home. Everybody has different personal circumstances. You could be a carer for your parents or a child, and you can't get out as much or go places. So subscription services might be your saviour. And so they might be the thing that is important to you, because you want to be able to watch movies. And, what's on Disney Plus might not be on Netflix, which might not be on Foxtel, which, so you may have 2 or 3 subscription services. And if that's important to you, then you need to find a way to budget for those and remove something that isn't quite so important. So a good budget is not a rigid set of rules. It is something that suits you, and it is around your spending, and it is a living document. It's not a set and forget, because circumstances change, things go up, things go down. You might get rid of debt. So instead of paying off a debt, you've now got additional funds to redirect somewhere else. So a budget is a living document. They do take a little while to set up, no doubt about it, and it's a trial and error. Rarely does anybody get them right to start off with. But it is something that helps everything, and a good budget will help you get ahead. On the flip side, there's lots of bad budgets out there, and they are often overly restrictive. They're unrealistic, and they're based on wishful thinking, but also they're based on not being on your unique personal circumstances. So we hear lots of budgets out there at the moment, and, because everybody wants everything to be easy in life. And I'm not saying setting up a budget is the easiest thing to do to start off with, but the benefits you'll get from it will outweigh that. And once you've got it in place, it really is just tweaking. But you'll see these budgets out there that say, put 50% away for your living costs, 10% for savings, 10% for having fun with, and 30% for savings. But if you can't live out of 50% of your wage, then you're going to say budgets don't work, and you'll throw it away. It wasn't the budget didn't work, it's the way you set it up didn't work. Or if 50% is more than what you need to live on a day-to-day basis, you've actually lost the ability to get ahead financially, because instead of redirecting that money to savings or paying down debt, you've been leaving it sitting in an account that's for household budget costs. And of course, we all know that theory, don't we, that we expand to what we have. So if you have $500 on a weekly spending account, you'll spend $500. If you've got $400 in there, because that's all you need, you will spend the $400 and you will find a way to make it work. And that $100 that would have been sitting there is now sitting somewhere much more productive. So don't be fooled about these nice little cheap budgeting things that will tell you to put 50%, 20%, and 30% or whatever. There's a few of them out there in all different cases. They do not work. They are better than nothing, but they do not work. So in essence, your financial budget should be your compass to getting you where you want to be, getting you to have the things that you want in life. And of course, part of that budget is it will break down that debt cycle that I talked about earlier, where you live to pay the debt and then you've got another debt because you've lived on the buy now, pay later or your credit card debt. You need to break that cycle, draw the line in the sand, and just accept that it's going to be tough for a couple of months or weeks while you get a grip on everything. We can all do a restrictive diet for a short period of time. We just can't do it long term. So if you have buy now, pay now later debt up to your ears, you've got credit card debts up to your ears, there is plenty of things that you can do. And we go through that in My Money Makeover of how you can restructure those things. But you have to draw a line in the sand. You have to break that debt cycle. And your debt cycle is your thing that will create the stress in your life. It's the thing that has you keep buying the buy now, pay later schemes. It's the thing that doesn't let you have that $1,000 bill set aside. So a budget will set up a repayment plan. It will find a way for you to reduce your costs so you can redirect that spending. And remember, I talked about earlier about my client that only saved $520 last month instead of the $833. So she put $200 on her debt, and $320 of that money went into a emergency fund to start to build the emergency fund. And that's as important as the debt, because if an emergency comes up and you don't have an emergency fund, you turn to short-term credit again. So budget is your secret weapon to getting out of debt, and it is the one that will find ways to find savings so that you can reduce your debts. Of course, there is two different ways that we talk about with our debt repayments. It's the avalanche method and the snowball method. So the snowball method is a real psychological way of paying it, because all you do is you list all of your debts. The one that has the smallest amount owing is the one that you pay off first. So you pay the absolute minimum on all the others and redirect everything onto one debt, so any extra payments. The psychological side of that is that some people need to see things going. And so paying off a nice small debt, they can tick the box, cross that off, whatever it is. And psychologically, they think they're getting ahead. Financially, that may not be the best way to do it, but if anything works for you, you do that one. I always say it doesn't matter what is best suited to you is the right way to go. Avalanche method is a little bit different. So what you do is you go with the highest interest rate one, regardless of the size of the debt. The idea behind the avalanche payment method is for people that need to know that they're getting a better result. They don't need the ticker box, and everybody's psychological way of approaching things is different. So with the avalanche method, by paying the maximum amount you can on that one with the highest interest rate, you'll be paying less interest, which means you'll get ahead quicker. But if you're the person that needs to psychologically see that you've got rid of one debt, go with the snowball method. If you're the person that wants to know you're getting ahead as quickly as you possibly can, go with the avalanche method and pay the debt that has the highest rate. It is important that before you get rid of your debts completely, whilst, I'm a big believer in the quicker you can get rid of your debts, the better it is. It's important to break up your debts between what we call good debt and bad debt. So bad debt is what we call consumer debt. So credit cards, personal loans, buy now, pay later schemes, and those sorts of things. Good debts are things like your home loan, educational loans, and anything that will get you ahead financially. The good debt can sit there. Generally, they're quite good interest rates. If you don't have a great interest rate, you should consider refinancing, but there is some catches to refinancing, but that's for another podcast. That's not for today's. If you're wondering what those things are and need help with your refinancing, as I said, reach out to us here at janrichardson.co, because refinancing sometimes can actually cost you more than staying with the higher debt. Now, when you're looking at paying off your debts, I want you to build your emergency fund at the same time. And it's important to get your emergency fund up as quickly as you can, because when that unforeseen bill comes in, if you haven't got an emergency fund, you're back to getting bad debt. So I don't want you, once you start to put things in place, to continue or to keep this debt cycle going. We're going to break the debt cycle, we're going to get ahead, and we're going to put things in place so that we never go back into that debt cycle. And my last thing I want to talk about is the psychological side of budgeting and debt. So budgeting, as I said, gives you peace of mind. It removes the money stress from your life. And as I said at the start of this podcast, money stress is now the greatest contributor to breakdowns of relationships. As we said, more than infidelity does, and that is a telling statistic. So I want you to understand the emotional impact of budgeting, because instead of laying awake of night worrying about money or arguing with your partner about money or having those discussions with your kids when they come home and want something, budgeting allows you to put something in control. It allows you to sleep at night, not worrying about how you're going to pay that bill that's just come in. It allows you to sleep at night not wondering how you're going to be able to afford groceries or pay off that debt that you've got, or the buy now, pay later that's creeping up and getting quite expensive. Tension starts to creep in when you're having these sorts of issues. And instead of the argument now being about money, it's anything little, because we're highly strung, we're in a stressed emotional state, and it just becomes a source of conflict with your partner. The other thing that we see quite often is the different mindsets with people in relationship. So we always talking about an abundance mindset and this scarcity mindset. So an abundance mindset person is what I call the half glass full person. They believe that budgets and money is there for them to control. Scarcity mindset person is the negative mindset, and that's where they go, I'll never have money, money's only for the rich. And they're pretty much setting themselves up for failure with money, whereas an abundance mindset is very much somebody that's in control. It does mean that they don't stress about money if they're in abundance mindset. And so if you and your partner have very different money mindsets, it can be the source of conflict. Because if you're trying to get ahead and budget and save, and you turn around and your partner's gone and spent money on things that you don't see necessary, that will also create a source of conflict. So it's important to sit down with your partner, work out what you want to achieve, what your goals are, and set something in place. And I have a 6 bank account structure that I use with all of my clients. And I know that sounds a lot of bank accounts. It's not. But the idea of that then is each person will contribute to everything. They will get, and you will get, a separate bank account for your fun money. Now, fun money, we'll find that that's where people's source of anxiety comes from, when there's that conflict of what do you spend money on that for and things like that. And so when you have your own bank accounts, it's your fun money. We call it the Queen Bee account, but, obviously that doesn't suit men so much. But we call it the Queen Bee account, but it's a fun account. It's where you go and buy your dresses, your shoes, your makeup, or for the guys where they pay their golf fees or fishing stuff and things like that. So if you have your own, you as a couple have determined how much you can have to do what you want with it, no questions asked. That in itself gets rid of a lot of the conflict about what did you spend money on that, or how did you do that, or why did you do that. My husband and I, not that we have conflict about it because we have it, as you can imagine, set up, but every time he sees me go to the hairdressers now, I pay a lot for hairdressing. It's important to me, my image, how I want to look. And he looks at that $240 bill when it comes in every few months, and he goes to a barber and it costs him $20. That would be a source of conflict if I hadn't budgeted for that in my fun account. He doesn't complain because that's how I want to use my allocation of money. The other thing to understand is that when you are stressed about money, it actually has a toll not only on your mental health, but also on your physical health. It can lead to anxiety, depression, sleep problems, and even physical problems like digestion, headaches. It's just a stress. So anything that is stressful on your body creates issues. If you don't sleep well, you are fatigued at work, you don't enjoy going to work, you don't enjoy family life because you're tired. So it is important that you create distance between your stress and money. And the easiest way to do that is with a budget. So it does relieve money stress. I'm not saying that there's still, it's not a magic wand. A budget doesn't fix something just because you created a budget. It is the plan that you put in place and the way you deal with it. And potentially when you first start budgeting, there is still going to be stress because you've got to make up a lot of ground. But if you can plan ahead, and we can look 12 months ahead, that by saving this $833 that I talk about, you'll have $10,000 sitting in a savings account, an emergency fund, or debt's gone by $10,000. So it does reduce that anxiety, and it gives you a sense of security that you are in charge and you're going to be okay. So first things I want you to do is obviously start doing a budget. I want you to look at where you've spent your money in the last 3 months. So you can do that, grab pen and paper. You can get an Excel spreadsheet. I've actually got a free resource on my homepage at jenrichardson.co, which is called the Money Dashboard. And you can enter your monthly transactions and you can see exactly where you spend your money, what days of the week you spend. It's a free resource. So again, it's on my platform, jenrichardson.co. You can download that. You can enter all your costs and it gives it to you in a real visual form. It's not like you're looking at numbers because most people understand something in a visual form rather than numbers. Of course, my Money Makeover, which is my course to teach you how to budget, where I'll give you the strategies to start to save that $833, and I'll challenge you to do that $833 savings plan every single month for 12 months. Inside my Money Makeover, we've got a budget that'll sit there which will tell you the automations that you need to put in place. And if you haven't listened to my podcast on the 6 bank accounts, you need to do that as well. I also want you to celebrate the small wins because that's a motivation. So if you've ticked off a debt, do a celebration. I'm not saying here, go spend money. Just a celebration doesn't have to be money. It might be cooking a really nice dinner for you and your partner to celebrate that you've got rid of a debt together. It might be having a day out, go for a walk in the bush or go to the beach for the day and enjoy the day. So, forget the ironing, forget the washing, but celebrate your small wins. That does not mean you get to blow the budget. But if you've created and there's room in your fun accounts, go out for breakfast. Go out and, as I said, celebrate. So if you need help with budgeting or how to save or how to pay down debt, reach out to me here at jenrichardson.co. Jump onto my website and grab my money dashboard to help you get ahead with your own finances, reduce the stress, create freedom and focus on what really matters to you and your family. So that's it for me today. Hopefully I have passed on my knowledge of how you can start to remove money stress through budgeting and how you can understand that budgeting is such a key part to your own financial future and removing money stress from your life. So I've loved having you with me today. If you have anything else to add, please reach out to me. Put any comments where you're watching or listening to this podcast. Jump over to my website, jenrichardson.co, or join us on any of our socials. I look forward to catching you next week. So other than that, have a great week and thank you for joining me today. Remember, the advice shared in Dollars and Dreams is general in nature and it does not consider your own personal circumstances. Dollars and Dreams is for educational purposes only and should not be relied upon to make investment or financial decisions. If you need more help, please reach out to a financial advisor for tailored personal advice. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. And please leave me a review. Your feedback really helps me to reach other people chasing their money dreams. You can find me over on Facebook and Instagram to connect with me. You will find the link in the bio or head over to my website at jenrichardson.co where you will find free content and learning tools.